Welcome back to a special edition of the France 24 debate on the day after the election of Donald Trump as president. In part two, we're going to be looking at the world according to Donald Trump, and we're doing so in the company of communications consultant Dana White, former advisor to Senator and presidential candidate John McCain. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks as well to Daniel Hamilton, Director of the Center for Transatlantic Relations at Johns Hopkins University, where he's also the Austrian Marshall Plan Foundation professor. Thank you for being with us. You know, I got to tell both of you, the France 24 debate team was in June in London for the Brexit vote, and there was a very familiar air here on the streets of Washington last night and this morning. First, the enthusiasm when they saw the high turnout from Hillary Clinton supporters, then the faces growing longer and longer, and the sense that we'd gotten it all wrong. And Daniel, I'm going to begin with you and ask you, because a lot of our viewers are wondering, coming up, we had Brexit, we've had this. Coming up, we have a crucial referendum on the Constitution in Italy. We have elections in the Netherlands, where the far-right leader Geert Wilders could do very well. And then, of course, we have a presidential election in France. Was this inevitable, this Donald Trump victory?
Not inevitable. This was a close race. In the end, he will be elected president. But in terms of the impact on Europe, and this will accentuate what you might call the disintegrative tendencies in Europe. You have Brexit, you have all the crises with the migration flows, you have other countries also talking about leaving the European Union. The credibility of the Union now is low. There are a lot of other populist movements in other European countries squeezing the political center.
Did you see this coming?
And you could say that over the last number of years, you've seen a phenomenon within the West of this populist rage of those who were hurt by the Great Recession, the financial crisis. The recovery hasn't really encompassed a lot of them. And you see it not just in the United States, but you see it in France, you see it in a number of European countries. So there is a broader phenomenon here at work.
And can he turn a negative into a positive? Can he tap into that rage? And
well, he did. He
did to win, but now.
Not only that, he helped get a number of Republicans across the line in very close races across the United States last night, so they have a clean sweep, not only of the presidency, but of both houses of Congress. They will also now be in a position to determine Supreme Court judges, so even the third branch of government now will be under that subjection. I think his instincts will be certain things we can discern from his comments during the campaign. A lot of this will depend, though, on who he picks as his national security team, Secretary of Defense, State, those types of people, whether they will be from the sort of more establishment wing of the party or whether they will be outsiders.
Dana, did you see this coming?
I had an inkling about it because...
How long ago?
Months ago, because I've been in places like Ohio and in Florida, and the fact of the matter is a lot of people lie on polls, and I think he also tapped into this political correctness, and even though not everyone liked how he said things, he really talks like your dad. He talks like people around a dinner table, and Hillary Clinton was sort of the politically correct choice, and I think a lot of these undercover Trump voters were there.
Because this is a key point, isn't it? Because you know, we in Europe have been reading all of these analyses about how it's disenfranchised white males from the Rust Belt. I'm seeing here 42% of women, according to a New York Times straw poll, who voted for Donald Trump. I mean, how can so many women vote for a man who said, you know, he brag about grabbing them by their private parts?
I got to tell you, I talked to women in Ohio who are Hillary Clinton's contemporaries. And the thing is, the issue is like the Democratic Party, pollsters, the media saw these hyphenated groups as monolithic. They said women are going to care about whether or not men talk about, you know, locker room talk. And the fact of the matter is women care about the economy. Women care about safety. Women care about their children's future, not just what men say between each other. If we did, we'd never do anything. And secondly, I think he really, even in North Carolina, he got double the number of black votes than Romney. So I think blacks, Hispanics, again, I think he really tapped into this message of America and what do we want, a better America, and he surprised everyone.
Does the political incorrectness work if you're a man but not if you're a woman?
I think the political correctness works.
Incorrectness
Works for men, because I also think for men, I think a lot of men saw Hillary Clinton as the end of masculinity. I mean, the future of masculinity has really been challenged in the last several years. And I think a lot of these soccer dads in Fairfax and Arlington, which is why they couldn't call Virginia very quickly, I think they told their wives, oh yeah, I'm gonna vote for Hillary. And they didn't. And so I think he tapped into a lot of college-educated white men. It wasn't just angry high school graduate white men. It was a lot, even black men. He got a lot of votes yesterday that people didn't expect to go to him, and she got a lot less.
What's going to happen now, though? Because, again, we said it in part one of our discussion, we have no idea what he's about. Let me just read to you what he said on stage about foreign policy. He said, quote, "We're going to have great relations with the rest of the world." What does that mean?
I think that means that he is going to be a pragmatic leader, where
Really?
I think he's a pragmatist.
Or does it sound like he hasn't thought it through?
I think he probably hasn't thought everything through, but I can tell you, General Flynn, who was the former director of DIA, is a very close advisor to him, and so he knows a lot about the threats, and so he's surrounded with some pretty smart people.
Daniel Hamilton, are you in favor of great relations with the rest of the world?
Well, as you say, it's hard to know what that means. I think right now we have to judge by what his instinct is likely to be on a number of key issues. He has said on trade policy that he wants to upend the international trade system. He wants to renegotiate NAFTA. The Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiated by Obama is all effects dead. He hasn't said much about the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, the TTIP, but one can't imagine, at least for some next period, maybe until after the German elections, that that's on the table. He even mentioned withdrawing the United States from the World Trade Organization. So this is a person who is more, he's a businessman. He thinks of foreign policy sort of like a business. He wants to cut some deals. So he's more likely to do bilateral trade policy, that is with Japan, China, rather than multilateral negotiations.
Because he does have the nuclear codes. So should we worry about that?
Well, there are a lot of people in this world who have some nuclear codes and a lot of other places as well. So we should all be worried in principle and make sure that procedures are in place to take care of this.
To put the question differently, is being a novice in foreign policy a good thing or a bad thing? Does it give him a fresh eye, or does it mean he'll be completely out of his depth?
It depends on whether he understands that he's a novice and surrounds himself with competent people. He is an instinctual politician. He's not a policy nerd, as we would say. He's not someone who's pore over all the details. He's one who wants the details to come to him. He'll make a sort of a judgment. People that understand that that's their way of governing can do well, even if they're novice. If they don't get that, and they think somehow they got a mandate to know everything, then we're in trouble. There are a lot of European politicians that are complete novices in foreign policy when they're elected. So this isn't a particularly American problem. It's really how he's going to do that. I think his instinct on Russia and China will be, again, to do bilateral great power diplomacy. That's probably how we'll think about it. He has said he wants to.
What does that mean?
That means, well, that means engaging with Mr. Putin. He has already said, wouldn't it be good if we got along?
Do you like the fact that he got that hearty letter of congratulations, that there were cheers in the Duma when they heard the election result? What is your reaction to that?
I think many Americans are aghast at that, especially since 17 U.S. intelligence agencies said the Russians were interfering in our election. But I think he would say, you know, I don't want to be in your business, you don't want to be in my business, let's sort of cut each other some slack and let's move on. I think that's deeply troubling for certain parts of the world of how that might go.
I think that is very important, because I think that Putin respects Trump. I think there's a sense of, like, these are two strong men.
Respects him, or thinks that
I think there's a
here's this new guy, I can toy with him.
No, I think there's a healthy respect, because I think that they both are sort of these alpha males. And I don't think that President Obama always represented himself as an alpha male. And so I think there's a mutual respect. But I do think there's a danger with him being a novice, and it does depend on his team to understand, even though it might feel expedient to sort of say, Eastern Europe, if you can handle that, I'll leave you alone in Ukraine, and you leave me alone in the Middle East. I think there is a problem, and I think that could be
Yeah, because
absolutely.
concretely, people watching us in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, what are they? What's President Trump going to do about the carpet bombing of Aleppo, or about the occupation by Russian-backed insurgents of parts of Eastern Ukraine?
I think we have to take a deep breath because, to be fair, Senator Obama was a foreign policy novice as well. We've had other foreign policy novice. I think you have to look at who does he surround himself with, who comes in and helps him.
And we have no idea, right?
Well,
because he's never worked with anyone before on anything.
Well, he does have Senator Jeff Sessions, who is a member of the Armed Services Committee, and he has been behind him the entire time. He does have Newt Gingrich as a close advisor. He does have some people that are steeped in these issues. But yes, there's a big question mark about where he goes.
All right, we saw there was I think it was a tweet of congratulations from your old boss, John McCain. Give us the inside dirt here. How hard was it for him to write that? Because I know he dislikes Donald Trump.
No, Senator McCain is always a statesman. He always said that he would support the party's nominee.
As chair of the Armed Services Committee.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he knows that the world is on fire. John McCain, he's the maverick for a reason. And he believes in the protection and the security of the United States. He believes a strong America is necessary for peace around the world. So he will work with a president.
But on foreign policy, will it be towards a John McCain type, who is somebody who's engaged in the world, a traditional view of the United States' role on the planet, or will Donald Trump be cutting deals with more isolationist kind of people who say, look, NATO, it's expensive, we don't want to foot the bill. The Europeans can handle their own problems.
No, I don't think Donald Trump is going to walk away from NATO. I don't think he's going to walk away from our alliance with Japan. But I do think he will challenge, conventional wisdom, which is a good thing because being in foreign policy, there's a lot of cutting and pasting between administrations. Foreign policy doesn't really change that much. So the fact that Donald Trump can at least ask the question about why aren't all of our NATO allies paying the percentage they're supposed. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, but I don't think that means he walks away from NATO.
Doesn't mean he necessarily walks away from NATO. Barack Obama a couple of times throughout his presidency talking about a new era of multilateralism. Where's that going to go now? Is the United States going to it's still shell-shocked by its ill-thought-out invasion of Iraq. Will it more and more withdraw from situations where...
I think first-term Obama was that inclination, that the troubles are in other parts of the world. Europe is sort of fixed and peace, and we don't know all these other rising powers, and we have to sort of engage with them more. That was more the tenor of that time. He realized, though, over the course of his tenure, starting as a novice, that wasn't necessarily true. And we see Europe is also on fire, and there are multiple crises, and that the United States has to remain engaged also in European affairs. That's where we are today. I do think there's great potential.
You're saying that, but does Donald Trump
That's where Obama is. I was about to say, I think there is potential for a fairly radical break on our foreign policy in a number of areas. I mentioned trade. I mentioned Russia. If you think Ukrainians can count on American support right now, I think it's a big question mark. I think that President Trump will have big problems with his own party, in fact, on some of these issues, where John McCain, other members of the House and the Senate really like the sanctions on Russia. They want to be tough on Russia. They want to support Ukraine with military assistance beyond what Obama does. There's no sense that Trump would go that direction. So there will be tensions.
And will the Russians push the envelope when it comes to Ukraine? Test them a little bit.
I believe Putin, frankly, now, given what has happened, will want to see what Trump really wants to talk about and what the deal could be. So I don't believe he will push this. I think he's now going to give him some space. He might push while Obama's still in office, but then I think they will try to have some type of conversation.
All right, I want to read, because it is France 24 after all, some reactions from France, because we said it at the outset, we're going to have a presidential election next spring, and Brexit, this, and now the French presidential election, where we know the far-right leader, Marine Le Pen, is slated to be in the second round. She tweeted, congratulations to the free people of America. What's your reaction to that?
As I say, I think the election of Trump is going to accentuate and give fuel to the populist movements in Europe. I think in France, it's going to give her huge new sort of impulse. In the Netherlands, there's a similar movement. The Austrians are redoing their election for their president again, which is in December, in which you have a very populist sort of rightist candidate that now I think will gain some momentum again. You have in the German elections the emergence of the Alternative for Germany, which is pressuring Chancellor Merkel, and it could change the coalition politics in Germany even.
All right, how did you feel about seeing UKIP leader Nigel Farage on the campaign trail? And in his acceptance speech, Donald Trump, I think it was almost exactly the same words we heard from Farage the day after Brexit, saying this is an Independence Day. I think it was almost. What's your feeling on that?
I think there's something in the water. I mean, we also didn't mention the Colombia deal, the FARC deal that went down. You know, I think there's something in the water. I don't want to say nationalism, but I think there's a rise of patriotism. I think there's something about what's going on that Americans and people, particularly in the West, are saying enough.
So people want to raise the drawbridge?
People want to own their identity again. They want it to be okay to be French. They want it to be okay to be a rural American and want a job and to believe in God again. Like, there's just it's not to say that you're a homophobe or you're a racist or a bigot, but people want law and order, and people want it to be okay to be from who they are.
All right, Danny, give me your honest reaction to the words we heard from the French president. François Hollande, he says, he did the usual congratulations, and he said this opens a period of uncertainty, and he says we'll be vigilant and frank with our American friends. Opens a period of uncertainty. Was that the appropriate thing for the French president to be saying?
I mean, I think, listen, it is a period of uncertainty for everyone. I mean, everyone is sort of thinking, wow, what just happened? So I think it's okay, and I would expect nothing less from our French allies than to say,
it's got to be a first, though, in U.S. history that a French president says the election of an American president opens a period of uncertainty.
I mean, but you know what? But he's right. This is unprecedented. Donald Trump is a real estate mogul. He came sort of out of nowhere, and he has awakened a populist movement here that no one saw. The elite didn't see. His ambassador didn't see. So I think it's unprecedented, and I think that's okay.
I think, as I said, the uncertainty in the transatlantic relationship over the next period only adds to all the uncertainties and the challenges that Europe itself is grappling with. We're going to face a Europe that is much more fluid and less predictable, that's less credible to others, less capable, and that's in a time when the Americans need partners to deal with a whole range of other challenges that we can't deal with ourselves. Whether the next year sees that type of relationship evolve, or whether we devolve into sort of bitter acrimony, I think is what we'll have to pay attention to. But the potential is there for some serious disputes across the Atlantic on very clear issues. You mentioned also the NATO debate. So on the other hand, I should say President-elect Trump has said on terrorism, absolutely, exterminate Daesh and go after the terrorists and work closely with allies to do that, including Russia. And in that regard, I think France has a bilateral opening with the United States.
Sure, but for all the other countries in the Middle East, it seems as though going after ISIS is their second priority. They always have some other agenda. For the Russians, it's propping up Assad. For the Turks, it's keeping an eye on the Kurds, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy. In fact, I think the trade-off will be I don't worry about the bombing of Aleppo. I don't worry about what's going to happen to Syria. I'm working on the terrorists, and the rest of it we're not so engaged in. He's basically said that. So that does open up some troubling issues with the state of political and social unrest in the broader Middle East if you have a single mind on terrorism without understanding the context in which the terrorists exist.
I also think something that this administration underestimated is how destabilizing the Syria crisis would be to Europe. I think as Americans, we have really fallen down with respect to Europe has really taken on a lot of the refugees and taken on a lot of those responsibilities. And we should have been stronger. We should have taken a more active role.
Well, Secretary Clinton wanted to, but then there's that vote in the British Parliament that upended everything.
But even the red line that President Obama said, I mean, that really set things, because when a U.S. president says something, he has to mean it. Or don't say it. But that really opened up an issue, an uncertainty, and again, I don't think we've been great with respect to helping our European allies with respect to the refugee
Not great in the help, and we're hearing completely mixed messages here, because on the one hand you're saying, all right, there's a promise that we're going to do something when it comes to attacking ISIS, and but on the other hand, this idea that this shouldn't be our problem, and that we should be more focused. We were talking a minute ago about populist parties in Europe. Let's focus more on what's going on domestically. Let's not worry so much about what's happening in the rest of the world.
Well, I think that is the great challenge of the next 5 to 10 years for whoever happens to be, whether it's 2 terms of Trump or whomever is here, is what does it mean to be involved? What are my interests? What are global interests? And I think you have seen something happen across the planet that says, listen, you have to think about the domestic audience first. You can't think of everybody else first. Yes, other people are important, but there are priorities. And I think President Donald Trump, will think in terms of what are in the interests of Americans.
Okay, so how do you reel in the people who are what's often called the losers of globalization? Because those who are voting for Clinton are the ones, who go study abroad and this kind of thing, or have friends who are abroad and everything. And but the ones who don't have those opportunities, how do you reel them in? How do you make them interested in this?
Here's the thing. I don't know that you have to. I think that's part of the issue. I think uncertainty bothers the elite because they're invested in it. We're invested in the next job. We're invested in the next administration. We're invested in it. But if you're a former auto worker in Detroit, you deal with uncertainty every day. Why can't people in Washington deal with it? Why can't Paris deal with it? That's life. And so I think there's less sympathy for that. And that's, again, this has been about you all having something that keeps you all comfortable. I'm suffering in Ohio. I'm suffering in Michigan. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, and you've forgotten me. And that's why we have President-elect Donald Trump.
That's why we have President-elect Donald Trump. Again, is he going to be up to the task?
I think so. I mean, listen, the American people have spoken. I think he runs a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. He has a lovely family. I think that's the most interesting thing of all. As narcissistic as he sometimes seems, he has an incredible family, and that's sort of this paradoxical shift or paradigm shift because his family's incredible. So I think Donald Trump is definitely up to the task. Again, we've had other presidents who haven't had foreign policy experience. We elect a lot of governors. We haven't elected a senator since Kennedy to be president. So yes, I think he's up to the task.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Dana White, I want to thank you. I want to thank as well Daniel Hamilton. Thank you for joining us here for this special edition of the France 24 debates from Washington, D.C. There's more on our website, france24.com.